Hey everybody, what do you think the best champions to climb with are? Well, due to popular demand, I decided to make this video on the best champions to climb with, at the very least, in top lane. So I came up with 4 champions that I think are extremely good at carrying within top lane, and I'll rank the 4 here, but I decided to rank them based on some of this criteria, which I'll go over here. I'm making this video because of Patreon and my Patreon supporters. I asked them what kind of video they wanted to make, and they had 3 different videos, all with the same amount of likes. So I went with this one because I figured I could actually do this one the best. So if you want to support me on Patreon, you can see a link in the description for mere $3, and you can help choose future videos. I'm making this list. In my opinion, this is going to be from Iron to Diamond 4. So basically, can you get from Iron to Diamond 4 with these champions? Diamond and above, in my opinion, the game starts changing, and the champions that are good for climbing below that aren't the champions that are good for climbing above that, and I just think that that's a good range to go with. So here's my criteria for what makes a champion good to climb with. Resistance to being counterpicked. That was the first one I thought of. Basically, is your champion gonna get blown out if they get counterpicked? If a champion gets blown out, then they're probably not very good for climbing with, because you're frequently going to run into matchups. And yes, counterpicking isn't that prevalent at the low ranks, but at the very least, even if in 5 to 10% of your matchups you get counterpicked and blown out, that dramatically impacts your ability to actually climb consistently. I think if a champion is good for climbing, they don't fall off early. Remember that if you're climbing, and if you're in solo queue at all, you can't guarantee that other people aren't getting fed. You could be playing top, and if the bot lane gets fed, that's bad for you. If I'm playing Renekton, even if I stomp the early game, they could end up with a fed Vayne or a fed Kog'Maw, and they'll end up out carrying me. Even though I stomped my opponent early, even though I did my job, even though I'm playing well, if I fall off early, that definitely does impact my ability to climb. However, even with that in mind, you still need the potential to snowball early, because if I play a pure late game champion and I don't get fed early game and someone else does get fed on their team, then they'll outcarry me simply because they're fed and I'm not. So purely late game champions that can't consistently snowball, or at the very least try to snowball, have the potential to snowball, those champions are going to do worse. Now, these are 2 things that I think are nearly the same, but not really. You need a good, consistent play pattern. What I mean by that is a kill combo that is consistent. Can you continuously perform the same kill combo and kill people, or is it inconsistent? Now, going into that is you need it to be non-complicated. So the example for this I'm going to use is Aatrox. Aatrox does have a consistent play pattern, a consistent kill combo, but it's complicated. Aatrox can miss it. Aatrox can mess it up. You don't want a champion who, even if you're 10-0, you can potentially miss kills simply because you messed up your abilities. That sounds silly, but that does impact your ability to carry. When you're carrying, you want to be able to get fed and just run into people and murder them. So there's another one, the ability to get kills and actually carry. Now, while I was writing this criteria, I thought to myself, there are actually some champions who are good at everything here, but actually, you know, like let's say I'm playing Ornn. Ornn can do most of this stuff, right? But the thing is, Ornn, tanks just tend to not be as good at carrying, at climbing as other champions. Now, I'm not saying they're bad at climbing, but they wouldn't make my top 4, is what I'm trying to say here. This is the ability to learn the game while playing them. And by that, what I mean is your champion so complicated that you're going to be spending all your time only learning that champion and only learning how to play that champion, or you're going to be able to learn the greater game as a whole. Because if you're Iron and you go to Bronze and you go to Silver and you go to Gold and you go to Platinum, the game is going to keep changing and getting more complicated at each tier. You need a champion who you don't need to be paying 99% attention to playing the champion. You need a champion who you can kind of be learning and improving at the game as a whole. The last one, and I thought this one was important, you need a champion who doesn't get nerfed into the ground. There's some champions. Now, this list is for after the durability update, the 12.10 durability update. So what you need is, you need a champion who doesn't get nerfed into the ground. If your champion is good at climbing, but next patch they might be obliterated, then they're not going to be good at climbing. So I have excluded some champions that I do think will be nerfed into the ground purely on this criteria. So without further ado, let's go into champions. Now I'm going to rank them. I'm only doing 4, but I'm going to rank these 4 based on their ability to carry. Obviously, in my opinion, the best singular champion of all time to carry is Garen. Now, let's talk about Garen. Can I actually bring this up here? Let's talk about Garen here. Garen has 8 health regen, which is average, but he also has his passive health regen. That means that Garen is extremely resistant to poke. He's got his W shield to help with all-ins, to help with dives. He's consistent as hell. You Q into E, and then you ignite and you ult, and that's all you need to do, and people die from that. He's consistent, he's healthy, and I think here's the most important part. Garen rarely, if ever, gets nerfed into the ground. He's basically never been anything but overpowered at the low ranks. While he does struggle at the Diamond Plus area, he does start struggling. He's basically never actually bad until you get to Diamond. And truly, he never really gets bad until Masters Plus. So Garen, in my opinion, Garen is pretty much the best champion to climb with of all time. And to be fair, Riot literally designs him like that, so this is not really the biggest surprise. Garen basically will always be the best champion to climb with. If I make this video in 2 weeks, he will still be S tier. If I make him in 2 years, Garen will still be S tier. I have extreme firm confidence that learning Garen and playing Garen is probably the most consistent way to climb in top lane, period, and I will die by that. The next champion I wanted to go with is Darius. I'm going to put Darius below Garen. Darius does have a few issues, and that's why I put him below Garen. Darius tends to do better in the Plat Plus area, so at the lower ranks, champions like Garen actually do climb better than him. But he does tend to start excelling at Plat Plus. He has really good level 1 health regen, really good armor. He has his all-in combo. While his he can miss his Q, so it's a little bit more complicated than just dead simple Garen. And that's another strike against him. Garen is dead simple. Darius can miss his Q. But other than that, for the most part, you ghost, you run at people, you try to kill them. Darius rarely, if ever, is actually going to spend a serious amount of time bad, and I think that's important. If you look here, if Darius is bad, Riot does tend to buff him pretty consistently. They never really leave him bad for any long stretch of time, and he will just kind of always do well because Riot just likes Darius and they like keeping him top tier. So he's a good, consistent climbing champion. The only reason I might put him down to B tier, and the only reason I would do this, simply put, is because Darius gets banned a lot. So if you're trying to climb using Darius, you're basically going to have to learn a second champion anyway. Because, and let me just pull this up here. Darius has a 22% ban rate at the old rank. So 1 out of 4 games, you're going to have to learn how to play a different champion anyway. So with that in mind, yeah, but I would say that Darius, as of now, for climbing, I would put him at an A, maybe a B tier. Maybe I'll keep him in B tier. If we're doing 4 champions, I think I can put him in a firm B tier. Okay, the next champion I want to go over, and this is probably the weakest one, but I did look at a lot of this stuff, and I do feel pretty confident in this, is Mordekaiser. Why Mordekaiser? Mordekaiser, I'm a bit torn on. But I did decide to include him based on history and based on my own personal beliefs as of this patch and how good he is. Mordekaiser does get buffed a lot. Whenever he's not good, Riot does pay attention and they do buff him. You're not going to end up with an Udyr or a Trundle that can spend years as a bad champion. Even when he was bad in Season 10 and 11, Riot was constantly buffing him. It didn't quite make him good until just recently, but they were trying to constantly buff him. Now, Mordekaiser might have low health regen at 5, but he has his W to give him health regen. His skill shots, or at the very least his Q, isn't that hard to hit. His E isn't that well, that one is actually a bit hard to hit. But the thing is, for Mordekaiser, for the most part, you're going to run at people. You're going to spam Q. You're going to get easy E's, which lead into kills. You've got your ultimate to be another easy kill. He's pretty not complicated. He's pretty consistent. Even if you miss his abilities, most of the time you can still get kills with people. What are the downsides of Mord, though? Why would I rank Mord noticeably lower than everyone else? Mord, I'm going to be dead honest with you guys, he's not mobile. Even with the passive buff, he's much more mobile, but he's still not that mobile. Unlike Garen, who can run around with Ghost, potentially Phase Rush, sprinting around with his Q and mauling people and killing them. Unlike Darius, who can chain kill with his 5 bleeds using Ghost and stuff like that. Mord is a little bit slower. And a lot of times in the laning phase, I do find that he can win the laning phase, but it's much harder for him to get kills than Garen and Darius, who can just pop, right? He also does fall off a little bit into the late game, more so. In my opinion, Garen and Darius are actually better late than Mord. Maybe that isn't correct, but that's at least my opinion. So, yeah, I think Mord is fine. He's just a little bit weaker than the other two. He's still definitely, like, if you're on this list though, like, let me just be clear. If I'm ranking you, I think you're the best 4 in the game. Now the last one, I'm a bit torn on, but the last one is going to be, in my opinion, Kayle. Why am I putting Kayle here? And why am I going to put Kayle so high? Okay. My opinion on this one, let me zoom in on this thing. My opinion on this one is that Kayle actually has a large tendency to get blown the fuck out by Riot. Very frequently, they will nerf her into the ground. However, she did already get nerfed. They're not nerfing her next patch. That means that Kayle will remain extremely powerful for the next 2.5 weeks. Now, if I do this video again in 2.5 weeks, maybe it'll be lower. If you're watching this video in 2.5 weeks, maybe it'll be lower. But at least for now, and for at least half a month, potentially much longer, Kayle is, and I'm going to show you this, she is extraordinarily good. And you can see here, these 4 champions are doing quite good right now. This is at all ranks. Kayle remains very good at all ranks. Even when we go into Plat Plus, Kayle remains quite good. While Mordekaiser's pick rate falls down, while Garen starts falling way down, Kayle stays pretty consistent both in pick rate and win rate. She even has a higher win rate than Darius at Plat, and that's where Darius tends to excel. So you can see here, at all ranks, Darius has a lower win rate. He's not as good as the other ones. At Plat Plus, that's when Darius starts doing a bit better, but Kayle is good at every one of these ranks right now. And the thing is, this isn't going to change for a while. Kayle does have an extremely high amount of level 1 HP that makes her harder to all in than you would otherwise think. Her health regen's kind of low, but she does have the heal with her W. She has the last hitting from range with her E, the last hitting from range with her Q. She is surprisingly actually good at locking down kills in the laning phase with her E execute. She scales extraordinarily well. You'll never fall off. She's not the best late game champion, period, but she's definitely up there. So she's not complicated. She's very consistent with her kills. She doesn't fall off hard. She does actually have the potential to snowball early because she can sneak in some kills with that E execute. She can get kills. She's not too complicated, and she's not getting nerfed. So actually, in my opinion, as of right now, the only champion that, in my opinion, would actually challenge Garen for climbing would be Kayle. The other two, they're still fine. They're still fine. But I think Kayle is extraordinarily good, and that's why I put her here. Now, look, any of these champions are going to climb. In my opinion, these are the 4 that are the best at it right now in top lane. So that's going to be about this video. I want to list one thing though. Before you guys go. Don't rely on meta whoring to climb. The reason I put this down here, you need to actually learn the game. Don't play overly complicated champions if you're not learning the game, okay? Don't just meta whore and pick Garen every game, get to platinum, potentially even get to diamond, and then sit there with absolutely no idea how to play the game without Garen, okay? That's my advice. If you want to climb, you need to actually improve at the game. These are champions that can help you improve at the game due to their consistency, due to their, well, ability to lane better and not die all the time and be good champions, right? But also make a note to actually improve at the game. So this would be my list: 4 best champions to climb with in top lane. I hope you guys agree with this. If you don't agree with that, that's fine too. But make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, leave your comment down below. Everything's great. You want to hate, you want to love. Both those things actually do surprisingly help me. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you want to suggest videos that I will do in the future, make sure to go to the link in my description and you will find my Patreon, and then join that, and then that's great for me. Special shout out to my YouTube members, and special shout out to everyone who watches this video. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.